Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello everyone and welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you come up with wonderful questions and we do our very best to give you wonderful answers, at least good answers anyway. So with that challenge accepted and your questions already in, we better move on. But before we do, if you have a wonderful question burning inside you, you need to get in touch with us because we love answering your questions. And the process to do so is very easy.
So easy. All you've got to do is call 013 808 0035. That's 013 808 0035. Or go to propertyhub.net/ask. Whichever you choose, you've just got to leave us a voicemail. We will then receive your question, we will ponder it, and then in due course, we will answer it. And that's what we're about to do right now for Spencer.
Hi Rob and Rob, my name is Spencer and live in Bath. Before I ask my question, I have to say that your podcast is wonderfully done, so a big thank you for all your great advice guiding us property investors as we move forward. My question is regarding some townhouses in Manchester I bought in a complex known as Oxygen Tower. Although the development looked beautiful before I invested, I worry that I didn't insure my 30% deposit, and it seems to be at least over a year delay in the build. It would mean the world to me if you could look at this development and see if you think it's a keeper and what you would do if you were me. Thanks so much. Cheers.
Hey Spencer, thank you for your question. Tough situation you've got yourself in here, and I understand why it's causing you a bit of stress. Now for me, there are some lessons to be learned here. We can pass those on to you, but also everyone else listening can benefit as well. Now let's start off with the delay. That could be innocent. And often in property construction, it is. Delays happen. It can be for a variety of reasons. It can be the stage before they even get building, all the paperwork that you have to go through, and something unforeseen happens. Whether a surveyor near the end throws something up that you weren't expecting, or the local planning authority really drag their feet over different bits and pieces. That happens. It could be that once they've started, the ground was worse than they expected. It could be that they've had to change teams on site. There are so many reasons why a development can be delayed. The delay alone wouldn't be worrying me too much, but it's the other factors combined that do have me a little worried. The 30% deposit. Now, as you've said, you've not got that protected, and at 30%, I don't believe it will be. The highest percentage I've seen properly protected is 25%. When you do off-plan, you certainly don't want to go above that level. And this is only made worse by when the development's delayed. However, delays can be a good thing in off-plan if you've got a low deposit. So what I would be looking for here in your contract is to find out when the long stop date is coming up. Now, a long stop date is pretty standard in any off-plan contract. And that date is basically a date when you can withdraw your contract. Now, you may not want to, and after further due diligence, you may feel that this development is safe and sound and it will complete. And as lovely as it looks on paper right now, that's all what will come about. Hopefully that is the case. But knowing when you can exit is really important. So ask your solicitor, when is the long stop date for this development? And if your solicitor hasn't put in a long stop date, then I'd be worried about your solicitor's choice as well. I'd also ask the solicitor, where has that deposit gone? Has it gone directly to the developer? Do they still have those funds to return? These are all important questions to be asking. So I would make that your first step, contacting your solicitor. Now, does that mean for everyone listening and yourself, Spencer, should off-plan be avoided? Well, no, absolutely not. Off-plan can be painful, like you've experienced, but it can be really profitable as well. It's a balance and you've got to do certain things right. But if you do, off-plan can be the most profitable type of investment you do. We've done a whole course on this on the Property Hub website. It's absolutely free, as you'd expect. And in that course, not only do we tell you how to protect yourself, but we also tell you how to take advantage of off-plan. And one of the big things with off-plan is getting in on a low deposit, because you can maximise your leverage potential there, and that's where the real gains are made. In the course, we go into full detail, but for anybody listening, some basic rules you can take away with you now is if you go into off-plan, make sure you've got a long stop date, get yourself in with a low deposit, preferably around 10%, and make sure that deposit's protected, and make sure the developer's got a track record. If you follow those few points, you'll be well set. But on the course, we go into much more detail, tell you how not to lose your shirt, and hopefully allow you to buy many more shirts.
Well, I hope you're making notes because there were so many important tips in there. And if you are in any way interested in off-plan, do go watch that course that Rob mentioned, because you do hear so much nonsense talked about buying off-plan. People saying it's fantastic and you can't go wrong, or people saying you should never ever do it because it's always a disaster. The truth, as always, is somewhere in the middle, but it's not random. It's not like half the time you'll have a great experience, half the time you'll have a bad one. There are some basic things you can do to make sure that if things do go wrong, which sometimes they do, you won't lose out. Okay, let's get on to our second question today. This one is from Adam.
Hi, it's Adam from Reading, new listener to you guys. I'm interested in getting started on my property investment journey, and I've decided that yield is what's most important to me at the moment. I'm therefore interested in the HMO side of things, but I'm a bit concerned, having never invested in property before, whether I might be better just to look at a single let to start with, just to understand the property process, and then once I'm confident with my first property, then move on to an HMO. Would that be something that you would think would be a wise move, or is it just a case of researching more into HMO? I'm aware that there's more regulations and more guidelines. I'd always have a property manager involved, so I'm definitely going down the hands-off route on that. But yeah, just would be grateful for your opinion on that. Thanks very much. Bye.
Thank you, Adam. Really good question. In an ideal world, you probably would start with a single let. You'd start small and work your way up. That would be the ideal, and that's what most people do, just because they need to build their confidence as they go along. That's an ideal world, but in reality, you might not be in a position to do that. You might only have a limited amount of funds. And if you buy that single let for a bit of a learning experience, yes, you'll get some money from it, but it won't get you to where you need to be income-wise, and it might delay by potentially several years you going and buying the property that you really want to buy that will get you where you want to be income-wise. So would you ideally start small and work up? Yes. But are you mad to go straight into an HMO? No, not really. It's definitely a bad idea to jump straight into HMOs because you've seen a course where someone's saying that they're great, or you know someone who's done it, or you're just blinded by the returns on offer and you go, well, I could get double-digit percentages here and single digits here. Got to be HMOs, and just dive into it without knowing what you're doing. People do this all the time and it never ends well. You get so many stories of people going into HMOs and really struggling because they don't understand the work that's involved, or even more common, they've bought the wrong property in the wrong area because they just looked at the numbers, but they didn't understand the dynamics of the market, so they've got a house that's half empty. In your case though, Adam, that's clearly not the case because you're listening to the Property Podcast and you seem like the kind of person who does their research. So if you did go straight for an HMO, I'd be confident that you'd be doing so with eyes open. You'd make the right investment. You'd look into what you needed to do from a legislation point of view and you'd be okay with that. And you said that you'd be using a property manager, so I'm sure that you'd select those wisely. And with them doing a great job, you wouldn't have to use up loads of your own time. The one thing that I would say that you should look into before doing anything else, if you haven't already, is whether you'd be able to get a mortgage against this property, assuming you want to get a mortgage. There's a smaller pool of lenders who'll lend on HMOs than will lend on single lets because it's a bit more specialist. And because they're a little bit harder to run and manage, those lenders often want to see that you've got some experience as a landlord. The majority of HMO products will require you to be an experienced landlord, which normally boils down to having owned a buy-to-let property for some period of time, maybe 6 months or a year. As always with mortgages, it depends on your own situation because there are so many different factors interacting. You can't say for definite, yes, you could get a mortgage, or no, you couldn't. But all you can say is that if you don't have this experienced landlord test, there will be a smaller pool of lenders available to you. And if for any one of 20 different reasons, those small number of lenders decide that they're not interested in lending to you or lending on this property for one reason or another, then you're a bit stuck. So if you haven't done so, speak to a broker, find out whether a mortgage would be available and if it's available at a rate that you'd be happy with. If so, then proceed with caution, which it sounds like you'd do. And if not, well, that doesn't mean that you're completely stuck because you do always have that single let option to start with.
So there we go. 2 brilliant questions and hopefully 2 very useful answers. The show will roll on and we'll be back next Tuesday trying to repeat that effort. But before then, we will be back with the Property Podcast on Thursday. So make sure you join us for that. So until those 2 wonderful events take place, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.